Hello everybody, it's been a long time since we've done an episode of this series. I knew that this is something that's going to be updated very infrequently, but it has been like an extra long time. So this is episode 3 of us reading Disney Adventures magazine. Just to kind of have a look at that nostalgic pop culture, where things that were at in that particular time for kids. And I was the perfect target audience for that particular moment in time. I have Rosa here in a box helping me with this read through. I was trying to figure out how to keep her out from putting her butt in my face and putting her butt in your face. And I put in a little cat trap, just a little cardboard box, and she seems perfectly content to lay in there while we do this. So that's great for me. Today's episode, we're reading September 1996 edition of Disney Adventures, featuring Robin Williams as the genie on the cover. And you're like, wait a minute, Aladdin was all the way back in 1992, and this doesn't focus on the classic Aladdin. This is talking about Aladdin and the Prince of Thieves, the second sequel to Aladdin, also straight to video. But apparently it was a big enough deal that they gave it its own Disney Adventures magazine. So let's have a look at it. So first we have the cover, of course. There's Robin Williams, classic comedian, and the genie is probably arguably his most iconic role. We'll talk more about him in the section dedicated to him. In the meantime, let's have a look at this little fold-out cover. As it's September, or the September issue, it talks about a lot about the fall rollout of new shows. So tons of new cartoons and renewed cartoons, or not just cartoons, I should say, but just the kids shows. This is for the WB, which is a channel I didn't have. So one of the things we'll have to be watching for this in this episode is that there's a lot of shows in here I did not watch. I'm Canadian, so I had Canadian television, which we had some American stations. Definitely we had Fox Kids and stuff like that, but we didn't have all of them. Depending on the time period, we sometimes didn't even have cable. It was kind of depending on how we were doing financially. So sometimes we had cable, sometimes we didn't, and some of these things were just played on channels that we just didn't get up here, especially not in a basic cable package. Sister, I do remember that show. I remember watching Sister, and I liked it. I liked the premise. I still remember the theme song. That's the thing. There's a lot of sitcoms that I remember the theme song way better than I even remember the show. So, Waynehead. I don't know what that is. Road Rovers, no idea. Superman. I never watched the WB Superman, even though it was kind of a continuation of Batman the animated series, and I watched a lot of Batman, and I really liked that show. And this is apparently a great Superman show. Very different from Batman because they're very different heroes. And they both would wind up being in the Justice League, sort of a animated DC universe. And Pinky the Brain and Animaniacs, Super Sub. I can kind of guess what that's about, in that it's a substitute teacher who's really funny and kids like him, I guess. But I've never heard of it before. But yeah, Pinky and the Brain and Animaniacs were Warner Brothers mainstays, and they did play on a lot of channels that definitely they played on Fox Kids, so I got to see quite a bit of that. And that was one of my favorite shows growing up, was Animaniacs and Pinky and the Brain. Even my dad actually really liked Pinky and the Brain. Whether or not we were there, he would watch it. He loved that show. Captain Crunch. Let's move past the table of contents and get into the meat and potatoes of this thing. Ooh, Kit Kat. Love me some Kit Kats. You want to talk about not just theme songs, but jingles. You never forget the Kit Kat jingle. Okay, so D.A. Buzz. We're looking at the fashion. This doesn't really ring true. What these kids are wearing here, this doesn't look like 90s clothes to me. Maybe, then again, I was never particularly fashionable, so but I was in classrooms. I saw what people were wearing. I don't remember wearing a lot of this kind of suede and polyester and checkered pants. And I think this is sort of what parents wanted their kids to dress like, but didn't. So, and if you ever wanted to have a September calendar that's you can barely read, there's one for you right there. So this is a focus on some of the movies from the time. So this one seems to be focusing on Alaska. Now, I had forgotten that this movie existed, but here's the proof. It did. Starring one of the... Oh, yeah, we got... See, somebody's now outside, and Rosa wants to know what's going on. Starring somebody, Thora Birch, who's in a movie called Now and Then, as well as Patriot Games with Harrison Ford. What happened to our box agreement? This reminds me of a certain kind of movie that I don't see anymore, of like younger kids, teenagers who would go on adventures, in the wilderness. Like that was a big genre in the 90s. I mean, Alaska is one case, but also, just trying to think of other ones like White Fang. Was that one? Like it was before this. It was many years before this, but there's like, a guy had a wolf friend. I just feel like that's a genre of film that you don't see much of anymore. And maybe, I don't know, maybe they just stopped being profitable, or maybe there was like maybe too many risks involved with younger actors. I don't know. I never watched Alaska, so I can't speak for that one. But here's a movie that I did see, Matilda. Everyone watched Matilda, as far as I know. It was a big hit back in the day. Directed by Danny DeVito, starring Mara Wilson, who was kind of a big deal. Now, by this point in time, she's a little older. I remember kind of first seeing her in Mrs. Doubtfire. There you go, more Robin Williams connections. But Matilda seemed to be a big breakout role for her. Should have known this was going to happen. She likes to chew on cardboard. So for those of you who haven't seen Matilda, it's a pretty fun movie. It's just about a girl who winds up discovering that she has magical powers, and it's kind of fueled by the fact that her home life is very hard, as well as her like school life. Her parents are very neglectful, to the point I think one might call it abusive, and there's this like horrible teacher at school who's flat out abusing the kids, and it's very hyperbolized and very cartoony in that sense. So it's not like, it doesn't seem to deal with abuse on a really like deep level, but it's sort of like a cool little kid power fantasy essentially on screen, and it's a charming little movie, and I haven't seen it since I was a kid. I liked it then. And Danny DeVito I like as a director. He's got a kind of a surrealist, because I'm thinking of this one, Death Smoochie, just a surrealist kind of presentation that I like. Now this bit has a bit more on some other shows that were debuting. So here we have Krat's Creatures. So, shows like that I think are very valuable, especially like since I always grew up loving nature and environment and stuff like that, and loved learning about animals. And Krat's Creatures was a great show for that. Dumb and Dumber. Dumb and Dumber had a TV show. Now, I don't recall this being very successful, but I do remember this existing. I didn't watch it. There are cartoons on a lot of Jim Carrey movies, and I didn't really like the Ace Ventura one or the Dumb and Dumber one, but I used to watch The Mask a lot, and I feel like that makes sense. The whole character of The Mask was essentially a real-life cartoon, so just putting it into a proper cartoon just made a lot of sense. And then you could just add more cartoony villains and... just plunk your butt right here. Yeah, we're good. Yep, just chill. So yeah, I really like The Mask, and also I feel out of those movies, The Mask is probably the best one of the bunch as well. Alright, so having a look at some of the celebrities who went to an award show. Blockbuster Entertainment Awards, which I don't know what that is, but when you're a celebrity, you just gotta go to these award shows sometimes. There's Will Smith as a newcomer. He's taking an award for Bad Boys, so yeah, that was right at the beginning of his acting career. Because, yeah, if this is September 1996, the year Will Smith really broke out. Yeah, it was 96. Yeah, because of Independence Day. I feel like that was the one where he really broke out. Bad Boys, Independence Day, and then after this was Men in Black. Yeah, it was great time to be Will Smith. Better than right now, anyway. Smartest Comeback, Tom Hanks. Most popular, Jim Carrey. Most colorful, All for One. Looks like kind of a boy band or something. I don't know who they are, but they exist, or existed. And, of course, at the bottom there is advertisement for Muppet Treasure Island, which is a film that I still love today. Okay, so here's the fall TV guide. Now, it'll be interesting to see which of these shows I know what they are and which ones I don't. The Bureau of Alien Detectors, bad. It's the X-Files meets the A-Team in an animated series. I have no idea what that is. No clue. Bailey Kipper's POV. So there's a picture of this Bailey Kipper kid right here. Doesn't ring a bell at all. No, not a bit. Bone Chillers. A group of 14-year-old freshmen, Fitz, Brian, Lexi, and Sarah, become magnets for the ghastly ghouls and mad monsters haunting the halls of Edgar Allan Poe High. Nope. Doesn't ring a bell. Brand spanking new Doug. Okay, so first of all, I never liked the title of that. I loved Doug when it was Nickelodeon. I watched it all the time. I felt kind of like personally betrayed when Disney bought it and relaunched it. I mean, it did kind of bring it to a new audience, but like, I watched a little bit of it and I heard the voice of Doug and it was different. It wasn't Billy West anymore. I just couldn't do it. I don't know what it was. Maybe the show was actually not too bad, but I just, at the time, I just like, no, I'm done. Doug was Nickelodeon, and that existed, and this new Disney one did not. But I did watch the Doug's first movie, which came out, I guess, a little bit after this, and no, do not recommend. Casper. Now, this is probably Casper, the show that was sort of loosely based off of the movie, the live-action film, which I used to watch the film a lot. And I remember, I'm pretty sure I watched this show, and I did like it. So the episode I remember the best was the girl, in the movie she's played by Christina Ricci. She was hanging out with a friend, and Casper was teasing her about it being a date. And she's like, oh, it's not a date. He's like, it is so too a date. And he just keeps bugging her about it. You know, I don't know. I don't remember the payoff of the joke. Anyways, it was an okay show. It wasn't as good as the movie. Sea Bear and Jamal. So there's this bear here. You can see a picture of him where he's just too cool to keep his pants up. So he's just a really cool bear. You'd think a bear that cool would have made more of an imprint on me when I was a kid, but I don't remember that show at all. The Disney Channel presents Flash Forward. No idea. Gargoyles, the Goliath Chronicles. That is the controversial third season of Gargoyles. In retrospect, a lot of people consider it to be the much inferior third season. It was like a different creative team, and they kind of abandoned a lot of plot lines, and I never watched it, to be honest. I watched classic Gargoyles. Not as much as I'd like to have. I remember I wanted to watch it more, but one of the problems with it is very serialized, and so if you missed anything, you were a little bit lost. I just got lost, and then I gave up, unfortunately. That's a shame. So now I'd actually like to get the series or find it. I wonder if it's on Disney Plus. But I would like to rewatch the series because I really liked it to begin with, and it is remembered as like a really solid, like classic series. One that's so good, people are like, was that really Disney? But it was made to compete with Batman the Animated Series, so it was made to be like darker and grittier and better quality, right? Ain't that the truth? The Incredible Hulk show. I didn't watch it much, but I do remember it. And I think I watched a couple episodes, but it was another one I just didn't see very much. And I did not know that they made a Jumanji TV series. And that was another one where I watched the movie a lot. But apparently there was a TV series. And here's Quack Pack. Sort of, I guess, another attempt at sort of making Huey, Dewey, and Louie like bad boys. And I didn't really watch that show either. Jungle Cubs. Looks like it is a continuation of, or no, it's a prequel to the Jungle Book, the Disney Jungle Book, because it's all about before Mowgli came around, what they were up to. So, was it good? I don't know. I never watched it. Mighty Ducks. I do remember the Mighty Ducks, though. Actually, this is a conversation I had fairly recently with somebody where about Rodeo Drive. There was a bit from the D2, the Mighty Ducks, where there's a line about like, Rodeo Drive, actually it's pronounced Rodeo. Oh, I know Rodeo when I see it, and that's Rodeo Drive. And yeah, that's just a little snippet from that movie that I remember. I referenced that around my sister-in-law, and she didn't know what I was talking about. I said, "Oh, it's from the Mighty Ducks." Okay, hey baby. Okay. She wanted uppies. She looked confused, and and she thought there was about ducks, and I'm like. No, it was just the name of a hockey team. They were a hockey team. They were real kids. Okay, here's what we're doing. Well, I don't know what you're trying to... Yeah, just chill. Just chill in there. And then, yeah, no ducks were involved in the making of those movies. And then they come up with this Mighty Ducks TV series, which kind of takes it in a completely different direction. And this is when Disney was really focusing on the brand of the Mighty Ducks, because they also like had a real life hockey team called the Mighty Ducks, because they bought... God, I don't even remember... Orlando? No, I don't know. They bought a hockey team, renamed it the Mighty Ducks, like just to tie it in with their movies, which was just weird. Now I think they're just called the Ducks. But when they first started, they were actually called the Mighty Ducks. And they had the same symbol as the D2 Mighty Ducks hockey team. It was a very interesting, very strange, real-life, fictional cross-promotion kind of thing. But anyways, this animated series comes out of around the same time. And suddenly it's about a hockey team of actual gigantic mutant ducks. Or alien ducks or something. I never watched the show. But I was just fascinated by it. Secrets of the Crypt Keeper's House. Interestingly enough, a live-action show geared toward kids that's connected to Tales from the Crypt. I remember Tales from the Crypt Keeper that was a cartoon. And I wasn't allowed to watch that, but I mean, it was probably harmless, to be honest. Because it was probably like super dumbed down for kids, but I wouldn't know because I wasn't allowed to watch it. There's this reference to the Superman, which I already talked about, and Wayne Head, which I also talked about, and that I did not know what it was. Okay, so for the afternoon adventures, I guess this is, maybe some of the other stuff was Saturday mornings, where this looks like it'll be after school. Big Bad Beetleborgs. I hated Big Bad Beetleborgs. Clearly capitalizing off of Power Rangers, but somehow making it more stupid. It had a couple seasons, so it wasn't a complete tank, but I just didn't like the premise. This Jay Leno-looking clown goof named Flabber, didn't like him. He creeped me out. He's supposed to be like a ghoul, a ghost, who granted them their powers, and they were too young to be the Big Bad Beetleborgs. They were little kids. They were my age, 10 years old, and then they suddenly became Big Bad Beetleborgs. They're full-grown adult size. In all honesty, it was just a really dumb show, and I don't know anybody who looks back and goes that was quality entertainment. I think maybe people can look back and go well, I was a kid and I liked dumb stuff. Quack Pack, we mentioned that briefly already. The Real Adventures of Johnny Quest, I actually really liked. I enjoyed that show. I haven't thought about it much in recent years. There was some really bad CG portions of it that I even knew were bad at the time. Compared to Reboot and Beast Wars, it just was not on that level. The actual stories were pretty good. It was treated like it was a legitimate adventure show, and it was trying to be really smart, good entertainment. And this picture here doesn't really reflect that very clearly, very well, the art style of the show, but, it's good. It's a good sort of publicity shot. The YY family, no idea what that is. But Saban Samurai Pizza Cats. That's one that's got a pretty good cult following. I didn't like it as a kid, but the more I've learned about it, the more interested I am in actually seeing it, because apparently it's quite hilarious. They dubbed it without having the original scripts and everything, so they just kind of had to figure out what the shows were about, and then they just basically turned it into a comedy. And the creator of the original anime even says that he kind of likes the American version better because it's more entertaining. But Samurai Pizza Cats, definitely one to revisit. I would want to try and source that out somewhere. I feel like I did myself a disservice and I'm missing out on something quite good. Moving right along, so there's a little interview with Robin Williams here. In all honesty, Robin Williams, I can't think of any single actor who played a bigger part in my childhood and the movies that I watched. I watched so many of his films growing up. One of the first movies I ever saw in theaters was Hook, and I watched it all the time on video when I was a kid as well. Nowadays we say VHS, but at the time it was just on video. A movie was on video. Now we say VHS to specifically put you in that point in time. It was a VHS. Actually, there's a nice little list in here that shows tons of the movies that he was in. Now, Popeye was one I used to watch. We recorded it off of TV on the same tape as Dumbo. I think it played right after Dumbo, or maybe right before, because that's what some families did. We just bought tapes and we just recorded stuff on the television and watched it ourselves that way. Popeye, I don't know if I ever really liked it, but I liked him in it because he was the only guy who could really play that role. Robert Altman, I believe, directed Popeye, and it's a weird movie. I wonder if I rewatched it if I'd appreciate it more, because I just think the pace is a little slow for kids. It's just a weird movie. I know it was a flop and it really kind of derailed his movie career for a little while, but definitely watch it for what Robin Williams contributes to it. Here it also has Hook. So you're supposed to be able to identify which movie is which, and this is easy for me because I've seen all these things before. The only thing I hadn't seen before this was Dead Poets Society and Mork and Mindy, just because Mork and Mindy was before my time. But my mom references it all the time. My mom loved Mork and Mindy. Dead Poets Society was just skewed older. I didn't watch that till high school, but I like it. I really like Dead Poets Society. But the ones I watched most of these other ones as a kid as well. So obviously Aladdin is number 9 there. Mrs. Doubtfire, I'm pretty sure my grandma took me to that in theaters. Jumanji, I watched all the time on VHS. I don't remember if I saw it in theaters, but we definitely bought the tape and watched it there. Fern Gully, watched that VHS to death. Toys, I watched. I think we rented it. And I rewatched it recently, and I had the same feelings as an adult as I did as a kid, where I'm I feel like this should be better. Toys is a weird movie. It's really weird. It's interesting. A lot of work into the visuals, but the story just doesn't really work. And it does leave one feeling a little underwhelmed, but it's got some interesting ideas, and for what is essentially a movie that is a failure, because it wasn't successful critically or commercially, it's a fascinating little failure. And, if you're going to fail in a movie, fail in an interesting way. It's hard to make movies, so I still respect it, but I just can't really recommend it. He talks about playing the Genie a little bit in here. Unfortunately, with the Disney Adventure interviews aren't particularly deep. I liked reading them as a kid, but looking back, it's just very rudimentary and like you don't get a lot of meat on the bone. But again, I have to remember that at the time, I loved reading this stuff. I loved reading the interviews. They knew how to write for their target audience, so I can't fault these interviews for that. It's just it's just hard to read it as an adult and go like, oh, this doesn't say that much. There's a little more knowledge we have in retrospect as well about Robin Williams and his time playing the Genie and how sort of like there were some controversies in that era. Excuse me, don't you bite me. One of the things that they were advertising quite a bit during this time was the fact that Robin Williams was back to play the Genie. Because in Return of Jafar, the first sequel to Aladdin, and as well as the series that happened between that and this, what's his name? The guy who plays Homer Simpson, he did the voice of the Genie. And because Robin Williams did not want to return, because he made an agreement with Disney that they wouldn't like use his name or like really push him as a means to sell Aladdin. And Disney did the exact opposite. They agreed to it and then they just didn't do what he asked. Like, Robin Williams took on the project, is my understanding, because he loved animation and wanted to be a part of the legacy of animated works. Especially, like, Disney animated works, they have longevity. But he didn't want it to overshadow, there was, like, another movie that he was advertising at the time. I may have been Ferngully, actually. But yeah, they just did the exact opposite of what he asked. It's understandable as a business practice, but it's unethical. It's just a gentleman's agreement, right? You're just going back on your word. But Disney, they don't care. But as a consequence, they didn't get him back. I don't know if they would have been able to afford him for the series, but for Return of Jafar, they probably could have gotten him. Apparently, they made amends for Aladdin and the Prince of Thieves, and so the big deal was that Robin Williams was back. My understanding was, and I don't know if this is 100% true, just because I watched the Aladdin series a little bit, but I didn't watch it a lot. Return of the Jafar was essentially the pilot, a backdoor pilot for the series, and they liked it enough that they wanted to release it on home video. So that's the beginning of the series. And then the series plays out, and then the end of the series is this next home video release, Aladdin and the Prince of Thieves. None of these were as good as the original Aladdin movie. But the series wasn't a bad show. It was actually pretty good. The animation took a hit. You could definitely see that in the Return of Jafar. But I think they put a little bit more effort in for the King of Thieves. Oh, is it King of Thieves or Prince of Thieves? I've been saying Prince of Thieves the whole time. I think it's King of Thieves. So that's my bad. It's on the front cover. Come on, Doug. Get your shit together. Prince of Thieves, Robin Hood and the Prince of Thieves. That's what I'm thinking of. There's a little bit of return to like some better animation. Obviously, again, nothing that's going to be as good as the theatrically released classic film. So, I'm rambling quite a bit. So let's see if I can speed this along. Because Robin Williams is also advertising a new movie, apart from Aladdin and the King of Thieves, Jack. Jack is not one of his best remembered films. And for good reason, in that it's not particularly good. Now, one thing I learned about it way later was that it was directed by Francis Ford Coppola. Like, The Godfather and Apocalypse Now, Francis Ford Coppola. And it's like, what? One of my issues with Jack, because I watched it when I was younger. It wasn't in theaters, but I watched it on video at my grandparents' place. If you don't know the film, he's playing a 10-year-old with a genetic condition where he ages essentially 4 times faster. So he's in a 40-year-old's body, he's a 10-year-old kid. I didn't feel like they captured the voice of a 10-year-old very well. I just remember, like, at one point, he's like, I'll tell. When somebody threatens to, like, I don't know, pick on him or whatever, that he's I'll tell. And that just didn't ring true to me at the time. I was like, that's not a 10-year-old. That's like more like a 7-year-old. And those years make a difference. You want it to ring true. Here it is in Disney Adventures. It was advertised toward children. It was supposed to be really funny because, hey, Robin Williams is a kid. But also, that's another big issue of Jack is that when you're watching it, it does not feel like a movie that's made for kids. It was a film that didn't really, I don't know what its target audience was, but it was like too sad for children. Like this kid, he's essentially going to die a very early death. It was like too sad to enjoy, and it wasn't funny enough. Like it was advertised as a comedy, but like the laughs were not really there. It had some interesting things to say, but like it didn't really know what kind of movie it was. So Jack is one of those ones I can't really recommend, although I'm curious to see it again because it has been a long time. The other thing that does ring true is the fact that, obviously he's a 10-year-old who's got like hormones of an adult coursing through his body, and he just falls so in love with his teacher, who's played by Jennifer Lopez, and that rings true to me. That makes sense. That makes perfect sense. So Robin Williams, as far as my personal connection, it goes beyond just like watching his films, but I actually, like, my first job, I worked at a movie theater in downtown Vancouver, and The great part about working in Vancouver, especially downtown, there's a lot of movies shot there. Where my theater was, it was right across from a bunch of like really nice hotels. So that's usually where celebrities would stay while they're shooting something in town. They would be put up in the hotel. What are they going to do on their days off? They're going to go watch a movie because, you know, typically people who work in movies love movies. So Robin Williams came into the theater that I worked at, and my brother gave me a little tip because I think he called to reserve seats or something like that. This is like the first time really meeting a big celebrity that like personally meant a lot to me. I was going to see Batman Begins, so it was 2005. I was 19 years old with, I think it was his family. I actually don't know for sure. I saw him in the audience. He was just sitting there, and there was an empty seat beside him. I'm guessing somebody was off getting popcorn who was going to sit with him. So I just swallowed all my nervousness, went up, and he's like, "You are who I think you are, right?" And he's like, "Yeah." I just told him that I thought his work was wonderful, and that it meant the world to me, and that I thought he was fantastic. And he thanked me very much. I asked for his autograph. He gave me that. Yeah, it was just super cool. And he's like, "Cool, but after this, you got to go," because he was expecting someone else to sit. And I said, "No problem, no problem." Just it was a thrilling, exhilarating experience, and I felt like, I mean, after that, I became a lot more comfortable approaching celebrities who came in. I don't know. I guess it was sort of like, that's as good as it's going to get right there for me. So I became a lot less starstruck the next day when I was actually working, or like a day after that. But he came back into the theater to see Madagascar, the animated flick. And I was cleaning a theater, and he actually came early into the theater to claim a seat. He saw me and he was like, "Oh, hello," as I was literally like putting a bunch of stuff into the garbage, and I was like, "Whoa, hi." You know, honestly, I don't know if he was just saying hello because he thought it'd be, you know, just nice to say hi to somebody who was working there, or if he recognized me from like the day before, because you know, I had a hat on now and like my, you know, work uniform, but I mean, I still look the same. The fact that he just kind of took that time to say hi and just give me his autograph, and he was just very kind. He was just very kind to me. So, you know, as much as I remember Robin Williams for being, you know, hilarious and the star of like some of my favorite movies growing up, ultimately my most personal memory of him is just him being really nice to me. And I think that goes a long way. You know, I don't have the expectation that celebrities necessarily need to give you things or even give you a lot of their time when they're on their, you know, it's their day off. Sometimes they just want to go and see a movie, and they should be allowed to do that and just like unplug from, you know, being famous. I think that that's probably important for them, mental health and just, you know, and just being a human being. But, you know, at the same time, like, if you're very kind to your fans when they take the time to say hello to you, and, you know, they work up the courage to do so, that's going to really leave a good imprint. And in that moment, like what Robin Williams, well, who he was to me, that meant the world to me. So when he passed away, like, I really felt that. I really felt that hard. And I think, and I still can't think of anyone else who, when they pass away, like, it just, the world, like, it was like a huge gut punch to everybody. Just like universally, everybody was like, "Oh my God, I can't believe that happened." I don't know anybody who wasn't affected by that. So sorry to, like, I don't know, it feels like it was a bit of a downer note to end this on, but it is hard to kind of like read a Disney Adventures with this amazing man on the front and just like not address the, you know, the elephant in the room. But let's move right along. We're almost done, I think. A little bit of a talk about The First Kid. Again, another mid-budget live-action kids film that I only vaguely remember. This one starring Sinbad and whoever this guy is. The comics for this month was essentially just an adaptation of Aladdin and the King of Thieves. This is a very abridged version of the movie, as to be expected. I can't believe they tried to capture the whole thing, but they did. They tried. Well, advertisement for a video game called Terratopia. Never heard of it. But here we're getting to the Technomania video game section, which is always one I really like to look back on because it was a very exciting time for video games. They were advancing at such a quick pace. 1996. We're looking at the early PlayStation days, very, very late Genesis and Nintendo. September 1996. Actually, we're looking at I'm surprised there isn't much mention of the Nintendo 64 in here, because that was right around the time it came out. I don't recognize most of these games. There's this Ken Griffey Jr.'s Winning Run, Kirby's Block Ball, just one of those Kirby games that's sort of a stopgap between actual Kirby games. It looks like something similar to just one of those Destroy Your Block games. That's for the Game Boy. Game Boy was still going strong many years after its release. Rayman is actually kind of the one of most note here. This is the origins of Rayman. It says for CD-ROM. yeah, Rayman is a character who's got some legs. He's had his ups and downs, but yeah, his first game apparently was a PC game. I'm pretty sure it was also ported to the PlayStation. That's actually, I think most of the reviews I've seen of it are PlayStation reviews, because I just tend to, the stuff I watch tends to be leaning a lot more toward console gaming because that's what I'm more interested in. I've actually been really interested in Rayman recently. I want to try and there's like a release on the Switch that I want to get of Rayman game that is back to his origins as a 2D platformer. And I'm missing the back page. What I do have is the see you next month right here. Again, it's going to be talking more about the Mighty Ducks TV show. I don't think I have next month's issue. There we go. That is the Disney Adventures for September 1996. Thank you for taking that journey with me. A little trip down memory lane, the bad and the good. Yeah, I don't know when I'm going to do this next. Again, this is a very infrequent series, but we'll have a look through something else fun next time. So please like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel. I'm trying to make it grow into something much bigger and something I can update more frequently. The best thing you could do is just feed the algorithms with all the interactions. So we love comments. I'd love to hear about your favorite Robin Williams movie or memory with him and what you thought of the Mighty Ducks cartoon. Why not? Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Take care. Have a good day.